Welcome to the itdvds.com YouTube channel. This is just a sample of the training available at itdvds.com. If you would like to see complete training, please go to itdvds.com. Now let's begin the sample. Exchange 2010 with Service Pack 1 brought some great new features. It also brought some smaller enhancements, and we'll see all of these in later movies, and we'll go into depth in each one of these. But let's just go over it real quickly. The first new addition with Exchange 2010 with Service Pack 1 was the Exchange Control Panel. And this allows administrators to be able to have a web interface to be able to manage things like roles, Exchange auditing, group membership, and a lot more. And again, we'll go into this in later movies, but the cool thing with the Exchange Control Panel, it's not just for administrators. It's for normal users. Normal users can log into it, and it's just basically Outlook web app, but it's an extra feature of Outlook web app. So it's completely web-based, and a user can log into it and organize their email. They can actually create inbox rules. They can manage groups that they own, add and remove users. They can manage account settings like changing their password, their ActiveSync settings. So our users can do a lot of administration themselves with the Outlook web app and Outlook control panel, as opposed to having to install a specific tool for them on their desktop. That's why it's very nice that this is web-based. The next new feature is going to be role-based access control. So securing Exchange 2007 and saying, okay, this administrator can manage this database or any mailboxes in this database, and this administrator can manage this whole Exchange server, that was kind of difficult with permissions like NTFS permissions in Active Directory, and that's how we used to do it. Now we have role-based access control, and basically we have commandlets that are used to manage our Exchange server, and we're going to use roles to say, okay, this user can use these commandlets, this user can use those commandlets, and then we're also going to be able to set the scope very easily. So you can only use those commandlets on this database or on this Exchange server or across our whole organization. It really is an excellent addition to Exchange 2010 and will make our lives as administrators a lot easier and more secure. The next great feature is going to be the ability to move a mailbox while the user is still accessing it. So if we have a large mailbox, like 5 gigs, 10 gigs, we can actually move that mailbox and the user can still be using it. Now, at the very end, they might get disconnected, but that's just at the very end of the move. So we don't have to tell the user, hey, you can't use Exchange for about 2 hours while we move your mailbox or something like that. They can just use it. The next great feature is going to be archiving, and this is really a fantastic feature because as administrators of our network and our servers and our desktops and Exchange, we have a huge issue with PSTs normally. PST files are just personal Exchange files that users normally use to archive emails, and those normally live on a user's desktop. We might try to get them on a file server, but it can still be difficult backing up and restoring them on a file server because it really wasn't designed for that kind of access. So archiving gets us away from using PSTs. It basically makes an archive folder in your Outlook. So when I'm logged into Outlook, I have an archive folder in there just like I would with a PST, but it's on our Exchange server. And the beauty of it is it's a separate, basically, mailbox that we can put in a different mailbox database. And that's new with Service Pack 1, that we can actually separate those out. So we can have some high-performance storage that their main mailbox is going to be on, and then maybe we have some SATA disks that are kind of large that we can put this archiving mailbox on, and then they can, fill up gigs and gigs of data on their archive, but because it's on our Exchange server, we have control of it. We can back it up. Not only that, they can access it via Outlook web app or any other tool because it's on their Exchange server. And the idea is, since it's an archive, it probably won't be heavily used. They just need to go back to it for historical purposes. The next new feature is going to be moderated groups. This basically allows a group owner to be the moderator, and any email sent to that group can be approved or denied. So this is great for very large groups where we don't want somebody just to send an email out to that large group, maybe without being double checked or being approved by someone. Next is going to be single item recovery. With Exchange 2007, users had the ability to permanently delete an email, either by shift delete or going into Outlook, recover deleted items, and deleting it from there. If they did, then we would actually have to go to backup to restore that email if they needed it, whether they needed it or we needed it for legal purposes. Well, now with Exchange 2010 and single item recovery, we can make it so that users cannot permanently delete an email. They might think they're permanently deleting the email. They can't actually access the email or recover it themselves, but we as administrators can recover it without having to go to a backup to get it. And there are a lot of Outlook web app enhancements. This is also called Outlook Web Access, and we'll talk about all the different enhancements later on. Incremental Edge Sync, this is for our Edge Transport server. Before, every time our Edge Transport server would sync up with Active Directory and get all the information it needed, it would do a full sync. Now it just syncs the changes, so this is excellent for larger companies. Also, high availability. There were some great improvements with this particular area in using database availability groups. Basically, they created a much more distributed high available architecture where we have things like database copies. And high availability is actually a very broad topic with Exchange 2010, so we're going to create training on itdvds.com that specifically goes over administering Exchange 2010 high availability. And that will actually be released shortly after this training is released, so most likely it's already on itdvds.com, so please check it out. And as members of itdvds.com, you have access to it.